Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Wednesday, so you know what day it is. It's time to be the greatest dad. So I'm back doing that. With us today is Rami, our very own Egyptian king. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Timuchin? Just happy to be here. Another Wednesday, another.
Gordon, meanwhile, is trying to provide competition. He thinks these mugs just you can just buy them off the shelf or something. Apparently, he's enjoying this rare, nice March weather for Chicago and taking the little one to the zoo. But little does he know, it takes a lot of zoo trips to get these mugs. But more power to him. It is it's supposed to be like a rare, beautiful day over here, and then we go back to misery on Friday. So some weird news to get to. So this is going to open a whole new can of worms, and I do blame you for this because you're the one who sent the link. So let's start with this. So this hits me both ways because it involves Fenerbahce as well as Liverpool. So Anfield Edition says, Fenerbahce want to sign. Alan is with us this morning. Good morning, Alan. Enjoy the ride. This is going to be a wild one over here. So here we go. So Fenerbahce want to sign Thiago in the summer and are willing to pay $8 million to bring the midfielder to Turkey. And then they tag Ospor, or you can say A-Sport, I guess, over here, but it's Ospor back home, as the source with this news. So this is how media has totally gone to shit. Because here's basically what happens. Ospor is one of those sports, I don't know, news sources, if you want to call it that, but basically bullshit sources that come up with basically bullshit. So there's like three guys sitting around, or like maybe they're watching highlights of a Liverpool game. They're like, dude, I bet you Fenerbahce would like Thiago. And then they come up with this news. So this is what's going to happen now, because you sent me this. There's no way in hell. Fenerbahce has really gone away, which I really like seeing. Fenerbahce themselves, at least, I would love to say the Turkish league, but not really, paying a lot for old guys. They're realizing that, it's better to sign younger guys that you can at least have a chance to turn around and make money on and then sell afterwards. Which, I mean, thank freaking God, about goddamn time after paying a lot for old guys coming for retirement, similar to what we'd see in like Major League Soccer. But this is what really gets to me. What's going to happen is, and I can get into it, I was telling Rami before the show over here. So, like, this is news now in Anfield Edition. What's going to happen is one of the other bullshit news sources in Turkey are now going to quote Anfield Edition. And they're going to say, see, there's truth to the rumors. Anfield Edition says Fenerbahce are interested in freaking or Ospor even themselves might resend it. And this is the state of the media right now. I feel like, Rami, we can't believe shit. And this is, they have these tiers, like we always talk about in the transfer market of which sources to believe in. It almost feels like you can't believe anybody now except like three people in the entire world. How do we come here?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's hard to believe anybody until you see the player actually in the shirt and taking his media day pictures. Because yeah, it's tough. We were talking about it before the show, but that's what generates clicks and comments and likes and everything. It's just transfer buzz. I mean, you kind of see with like a conversation around Liverpool, around the midfielders. Yeah, I think there is a lot of validity to it, but I think a lot of people just kind of want to see new transfers. And at the end of the day, like I said, that's what generates interest. That's there's been a ton of metrics for big media companies that the most interest generated isn't even during the season. It's during the transfer window when those rumors are heating up. And so yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know if 8 million would even be enough for Thiago's right foot, to be honest. But we can get in that conversation.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But then here's the thing: they gotta make it realistic. Because if they said, "See, if
Right.
Osport makes it," I mean, they're not that bad. Come on, give him some credit. If the Osport guy said back home they're gonna spend 20 million, everybody would be like, "Well, that's bullshit." Because there's no way Fenerbahce is spending 20. So this is almost like. Because then the guy in Turkey thinks Liverpool will sell him for 8. That's fucking real. I mean, because actually 8 is pretty high for Fenerbahce too to spend, especially in this economy in Turkey. So they had to make the bullshit. These guys are like pro at creating bullshit. They don't just like throw it out there. So they make it like a little realistic. So the guy over here is not realistic, but that's what kills me. And not to pick on Anfield Edition, I think they're overall great site. Actually, we have them on our like Anfield news feed. But I mean, that's the problem. Like when you look at some of their, like, this is, but sadly, this is how the social media thing works. This is a dilemma we always face with American Scouser. We could probably get a lot more clicks, a lot more interaction, a lot more followers, blah, 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 if we just did this. And ultimately, they can say, any news source, say, I mean, they are quoting people. They're not like just making this shit up, right? Like, some guy, Simon says, so Simon says, select a target. So they're like, we'll quote it. There's a note. And then you look underneath, bazillion comments and likes and stuff, people talking about him. So, and this is, within hours. So that's going to multiply. They're like, oh, there's another guy. Oh, there's another guy. So you keep going. And that's what the entire feed is. And I think that's like the state we're in, unfortunately, is they can make just bullshit news. And all these news sources basically can feed each other the same bullshit and then try to like offer it to us as they're passing it on to another. They're like, you want some? You don't? Okay, let me give that to that guy. They're like, hey, you want some? No, you don't. It's just, and here's another one. This was been like, we cover headlines, so you have to look through media. And this is what killed me when I saw this morning. This is what Echo has gone down. So Echo used to be like my go-to for like source. And honestly, this is the exact reason why we do not feature them on the American Scouser website as an RSS feed, because this is, hold on, let me share this tab over here. Yes. So they have simulated Liverpool versus Wolves to get a Premier League score prediction. You would think, hey, maybe this is a fun little article, right? Like a little paragraph of, who is this? Lewis Barton's 10-year-old son said, hey, Dad, I played Liverpool Wolves, and this is the final score. No, you would think that, but no, they literally recapped the whole goddamn game like it was a real game. Like how the score, like the lineups, the score, like the Reds control the opening stages. Like, you guys gonna be shitting me? Like, I saw this and I'm like, are you freaking serious? Like, it is unbelievable. So I guess we can start doing this too and play some FIFA and post it online. I mean, it's a whole article. I can understand like a little thing on the paragraph, but so I mean, like, obviously, apart from the American Scouser, where do you, like, for example, get your news? Like, if you want to like get actual Liverpool news, I mean, with American Scouser, our Discord channel honestly is probably like a great resource, just because people in there, I think, know what we're talking about, and they would only share, or even if they did share it, they would say, hey, it is from here though, so take it with a grain of salt. But like, where do you go for news?
Yeah, that's a good place, like you said, the Discord channel, because like you said, it's usually good, like summary of everything that's going on. Twitter, just people who are verified, like Paul Joyce, Fabrizio Romano, just verified people who really don't get a ton wrong. They don't really speculate on things. They just kind of, once the news has happened, then they report it. But yeah, it's like you said, it's very hard, especially during the transfer window, to decipher what's real and what's not. Especially because like we said, with these places, they can throw so much at the wall, and then once something does stick, they can be like, oh, look, see, we got this one right. Because that's the name of the game. Is just name as much people as you can. I can name Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Caicedo. I can name 10 names, and if I get one of them right, I can point to that tweet and then delete the 9 other ones and be like, yeah, see, I know what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of that going on too, where it's like, oh, in the nose, like, oh, I know this guy who works at Anfield, and he saw Jude Bellingham, talking to somebody outside of Anfield, and all of these things. So just like, it becomes this whole culture of, that's what gets clicks, and like you said, it just becomes this like this cycle of just media, just garbage, just being spewed out. And I think it leads to worse journalism. It leads to articles like that one we saw about simulating the Premier League, because there's no attention span for actual discourse. There's no attention span for talking about tactics, or who's Klopp going to play this week, or how are we going to fix our midfield crisis? Just, who's the next player we're going to buy? Who's the next one in the door? Blah, blah, blah. 'Cause that's what holds people's attention. And if you can't hold people's attention for long, like I said, you have to start just resorting to things like simulating in FIFA. So it's a tough situation we're in, for sure. Just online discourse, I guess.
Sparky says not looking forward to today's game. Yeah, we're gonna get to that next. I'm not even looking forward to getting to it, leave alone the game itself. So just imagine that. But yeah, I mean, okay, like Sparky will attest to this, because I believe Sparky and I are about the same age. Hopefully he's not as old as I am, but still, I think the biggest problem has been, not to sound like the boomer here, but like the thing with social media is they gotta put out more. I mean, this was probably always the case. Like in newspapers, you had, I mean, growing up, there were newspapers back home that was nothing but bullshit, sports news, because it was a sports newspaper. And to get a sports newspaper, you had to create excess bullshit because you got to fill out a whole fucking newspaper that's just on sports. So every morning there was like, and I don't know, as a kid at the time, you'd be like, "Oh, really? What if it happened?" And you would like, "How about you signing this guy? I got to start signing this guy." They would just throw it out there. They're like, "So and so is interested." Blah blah blah. I mean, and then it's back in the day. There's no way to verify it or anything either. So you read in the newspaper, you're like, "Wow, man, you never know, man. You never know." And but I feel like now with social media, they gotta do that nonstop, like 24/7. Back then when it was a newspaper, they were like, they had the meeting. They were like, okay, we need 5 stories. We got 4. Well, fucking make up one, my Joe. And then, Joe would make up one. Now I feel like because of social media, they got to throw up shit there throughout the day. So they're like, hey, we got to throw up 20 things today to get clicks, view ads, and all that kind of stuff. How many do we got? 4. Okay, Joe, Simon, Ken, I need 4 bullshit story from you guys. I don't care if you play FIFA. Like, so I think that's what happens. And because there's all this freaking garbage, it's kind of hard to take any of them seriously. But that has been my boomer TED talk for this morning. I just feel like when you sent that, I was like, oh, here we go. Because I know I'm going to go to Turkish papers today. And somebody's going to be quoting Anfield Edition saying Fenerbahce is interested in Thiago, or even worse, they're like, rumors out of Liverpool say that Thiago is looking forward to, and then there'll be like a freaking quote like Thiago in 2005 said Fenerbahce is a big club or something because they happen to be playing against Fenerbahce or something like that. I mean, this shit is so easy. Like I could just. And that's another thing. It doesn't take time. It doesn't take skill. You can take any intern from college. You can take a goddamn freshman. You can take a freaking high school kid and say, hey, man, just whip some shit up. I don't even care. I mean, most of them are not well written anyway. Or, you can now put it in AI and then give some news and then it spits it out for you anyway. So it's just, it's sad because I feel like it's kind of harder to follow the news and actually get real news. But that's why, I mean, we always push it anyway. I think because it's not false advertising. You can definitely go to Discord channel. Like, even if, here's the thing, because if somebody shares some bullshit, they know they're going to get pounded too in there. So I think, people only share the legit stuff, or even if they share it, they were like, I take it with a grain of salt or something like that. But you almost do need that. And I agree with you. I mean, it has come down to 2 or 3 people that are reliable and they're not going to do it just to get clicks. But the sad thing is what happens is one of those guys miss and then it becomes, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about now either. So it's really a hard gig to be. I really feel for actual journalists now, because I feel like it's really hard to be one, a legit one. Because after a while, like I say, we have fought the feeling and we'll continue to do so as American Scouts and not put clickbait stuff out there. But these guys make this for a living. We don't. This is more like a hobby and a side thing and like a fun project for us. These guys make it for a living. So after a while, when you see the guy next to you bullshitting, making 10 times more than you, it has to be really hard to keep your integrity for that long when you can't pay the bills. I'm sure Joyce can't pay the bills, but that's a different story. So let's talk about this. Because you mentioned this article as well. Hakimi is available for PSG selection. That's not the main news. Investigation to like a rape allegation. A woman, from what I read and know, went to the police and reported it, but then did not want to press charges, which I don't know how that works. But then it's the same thing in the U.S. over here. It does not matter when there's domestic violence and stuff like that. It does not matter if you want to press charges. The police automatically has to do the charges. I mean, you can afterwards they can be dropped or whatever because if the other party doesn't cooperate, but the police still has to bring the charges on. But so do we hear more and more of this? Do you think it happens more and more, or we just hear it more and more? What's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to say like he's innocent until proven guilty. These are all allegations, but yeah, if they are true, that's a disheartening thing. It's like you said, it's like the chicken or egg question. Are we hearing about it more now because social media is more available and stuff, or is it actually happening more amongst football players? Like you hear about the Benjamin Mendy case, the Dani Alves case that's coming out now. Mason Greenwood, and these are just some names off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more. And like I said, I'm not sure if because of social media and the news cycles and all that stuff that we were just talking about, if now you need to fill up that time so you hear about it more, or if it actually is happening more. And it could also even be a side effect of social media because these players are so huge now, and everybody knows who they are, and they generally have access to everything. They feel like they can just take advantage of anyone. They just feel like, I guess, infallible. I would just like to say it if these allegations are true, it's very disappointing because Hakimi was like he was like the fan favorite of the World Cup. He was like dancing with his mom, and he just seemed like a generally friendly guy. And you see kids wearing his shirt and all of this stuff, and for him to essentially maybe throw all of that away over something just reckless like that is just very, very disappointing. You just expect better from a player like that. But yeah, it's like you said. I don't know if it's happening more, but it could very well be. I just think these players in this I don't say in this generation, but in this generation, they are growing up their whole football career being like told, yeah, you're the guy, you can have whatever you want, stuff like that, never being told no. It's like, and so they go log on social media, a bunch of people are saying the same thing. Oh, Hakimi's my favorite player, all of this stuff. So then when you're living your whole life just being told yes constantly, when someone tells you no, in a private situation like that, it can get very messy because you're not used to not having that control and that power. So I think you could say social media could play a factor into just our society as it is now. And then on top of that, I think we do hear about it more just because of social media. But that being said, I just think there's more of a culture surrounding football now that allows for this, which is, I think, the main concern.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, yeah, because of the fame and the power and the money, I'm sure the sense of entitlement is a lot more
Mhm.
from these players, especially like star players. But I think like any player, like that plays on a good league, top team, clearly will have the financial power, if you will, and then yeah, they to make it there, they probably were the best guy in their team for a long time and constantly were told that and all that kind of stuff. And I think goes back to what you're saying in terms of like innocent until proven guilty. I think at the same time, because of all that, they are targets as well. Like, so if I mean, we've had cases where there have been allegations coming out and there was like nothing to it because it's like it feels like at the same time there's not much to lose by the side that's claiming things,
Mhm.
because if they're like, nope, this is a bullshit case, there you can just throw the mud and walk away. But so I hope that kind of to come, because that's what I'm afraid of is some people that actually the stuff happens to do not come out and say anything, because they don't want to take this battle on. Because when you're taking a guy like Hakimi on, you're taking a lot of money, a lot of lawyers, a lot of PR, and all that kind of stuff in the background. That's going to smear your character and all that kind of stuff and go after you. So it's a fear for a lot of people, like a lot of victims to come out. And that's why I hate about, false victims. And I wish there was more consequences for that because I think it hurts actual victims.
Yeah, 100%. And like during the Mason Greenwood case, it was kind of awful the things that were being said about the victim in that situation. It's just kind of like from Manchester United fans, whoever England fans, they're just blaming her and just being like, why would you do this? Why would you bring these charges up? And you're 100% right. I think false accusations are very harmful, not just to the person involved, but also just to just future victims as well. It just makes that whole discourse being like very toxic and very hard to believe people and stuff like that. But I always look at like, if somebody is making this accusation, what do they stand to gain? And when you look at the Hakimi situation, like you said, she didn't even want to press charges. She was just reporting the situation, and that makes me kind of feel like she didn't really have anything to gain from like you said, she didn't have anything to lose, but she also really didn't have much to gain considering she
Yeah.
didn't even want to file a police report or do anything like that. So that's what kind of makes me lean like it could actually be true because why would she do that if she if she was after the fame or the money or whatever, she would made a much bigger deal about it or posted on social media or done something like that. But in this situation, it seemed like it was sincere, and so that's what kind of leads me to believe, unfortunately, that it might be true. Like I said, we have to wait and see. We'll see what the court decides, what the evidence says, but court of public opinion is a real thing. Like you look at Thomas Party, for example, he's like hated by a lot of fan bases now because of his accusations. Yeah, they weren't proven in the court of law, But there are screenshots on social media, and the court of public opinion was enough to just rule that this accusation is going to stick. So it's very tough. Once, like you said, you hope that everybody who comes out is actually a victim and they're not ruining it for people who are victims. But it's very hard in today's day and age to trust, like we talked about earlier, to trust anybody or everybody. So you have to kind of pick and choose and just kind of look at the situation from different perspectives and be like, what would the victim have to gain? What would they have to lose? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like, because it was reported right away, you almost have to feel like there is truth to it. It's not coming out like 3 months ago or something like that. And like I said, I'm not familiar with French law, obviously, but it's sounds like it's similar to here, where the police has to investigate regardless of if you want to file charges or not, because it's it's like built into the law. And that's the thing. At the same time, yeah, it's like, sometimes, yeah, we do judge people on social media. I feel like in a case, and sadly, our stereotypes, or maybe because of the team they play on and stuff like that, sadly, that factors into it. Like if it was like, I don't know, like the whole Mason Greenwood thing, I think we talked about it in the morning over here, like how would we feel or what would we say if it was like a Liverpool player? I mean, I feel like something like that where you have evidence, and the only reason it went away is not because he was proven innocent, but the complaint was dropped and stuff like that. Actually, Gordon this week sent me a picture that they're getting married or they're having a baby or something like that now. And so I think something like that, it's a lot easier for us to judge on because we have something, we have a recording, we have video, whatever the case is. I think in most other cases, we kind of go off of what we feel, right? So it's parte, like these people are saying this, we have not seen some evidence. And then you're like, yeah, I've seen some hard tackles from him. I can see that guy being an asshole like that, right? And then if it is like somebody maybe you like, or somebody from your team, or somebody you're like more indifferent to, I feel like people are more like, well, let's wait and see and what happens. I think that's the unfortunate part, is you should still go by the evidence, I think, but we go by just emotion rather than fact.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, and that's it. Just like you said, it's kind of sad that it's banter and football tribalism comes first before all these things. But yeah, I do want to mention that, like, even if these allegations aren't true, but that's kind of going to follow Hakimi around for the rest of his career. I'm sure, like you said, like if he was in the Premier League, the banter would just, people still calling him rapist and all these types of things. Even if the allegations aren't true, like you still say, like I said with Partey, he was never convicted of anything. But I don't know if it's just tribalism or whatever, but people just go at Thomas Partey a lot more because of that. So I don't know. It's a very sticky situation. That's why I even told you, I was like, I don't even know if we should discuss it or not, because it is kind of a tricky situation. And there's a lot of, like, you don't want to step on anybody's toes, especially when they're a victim in this situation. But like I said, there's just so much, and now with the social media age and people doing things for clicks and money, like we talked about earlier, it's just very hard to like weed yourself out through the situation. So, but yeah, it's still, it doesn't make the conversation any less true that it feels like it is happening a lot these days with football players, that this isn't just a one-time thing. And I think that's where the conversation needs to also happen too, is like, if it is happening more and we're not just hearing about it more, what is the case? Is it, like I said, just these players just have a sense of entitlement, or is it something else? Is it the way the football fans treat each other? Is like the football fan culture? Is it stuff like that? So I don't know. It's like I said, it's tough to say. It's a very difficult conversation, but I think it's one that needs to be had.
I think so too. And I think, and that's why I was like, yeah, let's talk about it, because it would be good to get like people's feedback on it as well. Because I think perhaps I would love to know, and I think it's almost impossible to know, especially because of the situation. Is it happening more, or are we hearing about it more? Where like those people were never saying anything, they hopefully maybe feel more empowered, which is great in some ways. I mean, it's not that great they're victims, but the fact that they're coming out and like doing the accusation is a good sign by itself. And I don't know, in the past, because of social media, they're able to get the news out a lot easier. And let's face it, when something like this happens, all the social media suddenly spreads the whole thing, as opposed to in the past, it was probably a lot easier. 20 years ago, it was probably a lot easier if something like this happened to kind of sweep it under the rug and make it go away. I think it's a lot harder for some of these guys to make it go away now just by paying and stuff like that. Because once the word comes out a little bit, it gets so blown out on social media. It's not as easy to just make it go away. I mean, I guess you could argue that Mason Greenwood is making it go away. But by the way, to tie in these two stories, last week I read Fenerbahce is interested in Mason Greenwood. And honestly, that made a lot more sense to me than the whole freaking thing over here. Because I really feel like that's probably Mason Greenwood's next step is to go international somewhere, and then maybe eventually come back as somebody has forgotten about the whole thing in like 5 years or whatever. Because I think if he goes to, like, if he came to Fenerbahce now, while like opposing team fans would say stuff, it would be like, oh, but he was like, he was accused, but nothing came off of it. Nobody's gonna know the details or share the details or bring it that much out. Whereas I really find it hard for any team in England to kind of employ him now. But you never know, somebody might sell out at the end of the day. But since we can't, I mean, I guess I can if the audience wants me to play FIFA and simulate this like Echo did. But we are less than, I mean, yeah, these are like torture sessions, like Sparky was saying earlier. Not looking forward to today's game, man. Yeah, these are rough. It's kind of like a toil. In the past, it was an occasion that was fun / nervous, like because you had to get the 3 points because of the title chase and stuff like that. So there was that nervousness to it, but there was also looking forward to seeing this team kick ass because the way they play and stuff like that. Now it's almost like you're watching between your like fingers to see what do you expect to see, because God knows what the hell. In great words of Schmeichel, I have no idea what's going to happen today.
There's that hard-hitting analysis I love, yeah. Yeah, but I agree. I'm 100% on Team Schmeichel. I don't know what's going to happen. So that's very true. That's if you could sum up one of the issues with this squad is exactly that. It's like you don't know which one's going to show up. Is it going to be the one that beat Man City 1-0 or the one from those first 15 minutes against Madrid? Or is it going to be the one from the second half against Madrid? You know what I mean? Or the one that played Wolves a couple weeks ago that lost 3-0, or the one that lost to Brighton 3-0, stuff like that. So you never really know which squad is going to show up, and that's part of the problem. Yeah, watching that match on Saturday against Crystal Palace was like pulling teeth. It was just like we were just lucky that Crystal Palace was nearly just as bad as us, so that game could have ended 1 or 2-0. You could also make the argument that we should have won 1 or 2-0. We hit the crossbar I think twice. They had a few good saves, a few good defensive plays. We had some chances, but it's just so hard to know which team is going to show up, who's even going to play, who's even still available. I stopped looking at injuries because I feel like it's just like a merry-go-round. Just one week a player's in, the next week somebody else is out, stuff like that. So I just wake up, or I just check the team sheet. Hopefully we have everybody, but it just it's tough, like I said, to get some consistency going when you don't know who's going to be out there and you don't know what how they're going to play. So like I wanted to see response after Madrid. I'm not sure we saw that yet. So hopefully this is another opportunity to start righting some wrongs that we've had throughout this year.
It just feels like I don't think this team has it in them to give a response this year. I mean, I was watching something yesterday, showed up on my feed about Klopp talking about, how, people were saying, oh, last season, 63 games, blah, blah, blah. But even Klopp said, he could have seen that as an issue in the first half of the season. And we did as well. And we said after the World Cup, they're going to get their rest. Everything is going to be so great. Jota is coming back. Diaz is coming back. Party time. And and I think I just feel when you watch this team compared to, and maybe because we've seen the same freaking people out there 2 years ago, because we haven't made that many moves. So obviously, like in midfield defense and stuff, it's pretty much the same lineup. So we've seen these same guys out there play with confidence and with an attitude that is like, we got this. And then watching the same players now where they looked so timid and scared. I mean, watching the Palace game, like seeing Trent and Matip and stuff so like scared on the ball, like to make a mistake, the lack of confidence, and when is something gonna go wrong, that attitude they seem to have. I mean, it's not an attitude, I guess it's more like a feeling of like lack of confidence right now. It just feels like that's why we're not going to get, they can start great and get a goal early and I think that's something that will kind of carry them. But even if they start great and they don't score early, I feel like this is a team now that's going to be like, holy shit, here we go. When is something going to go wrong?
Yeah, and that's the scary part because when you start to think that way, then something does go wrong. That's when it does get dangerous. I felt the same way just watching Matip play. He used to look very calm and collected on the ball, like you could trust him, and now you're just like, oh, when is he gonna make a mistake? Or hopefully the mistake doesn't lead to a goal, stuff like that. Allison, same way. You used to be able to trust him, he very secure at his feet. Then he makes that mistake against Real Madrid, and you're like, oh, like maybe not. Maybe we can't just trust him. Yeah, he's made mistakes in the past, but it's like he's still generally a reliable keeper. Yeah, you can go down the list. Look at any of the players; they just look completely lacking in confidence and even just physical ability. Like they just don't look like they want to run. They just look like they just had a heavy meal and they just want to go sit on the couch, not go play 90 minutes of football. It just looks like very very lethargic. I think is the way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think the worst part is now we have a bunch of excuses being made for players because we enjoy these players and they gave us a ton of good moments, but we have to be able to call it out when you see. I think it was you who said in the Discord chat yesterday when we were talking about Fabinho. People are coming up with a bunch of excuses as to why he's just fallen off a cliff, without being like, hey, maybe he just fell off this cliff. Maybe he's not the player he used to be. If we start just making a bunch of random excuses for every single player, we're never going to hold anybody to any criticism. So yeah, you can make all the excuses you want, but at the end of the day, excuses can be made for maybe one or two guys and they're out of sync or whatever. But when the full 23-man squad or 15-man, like 11 plus the reserves and the subs, are not playing well, you have to look at what the main issue is. And I think it is a mental thing. I think it's just the confidence is just not there. They're just not putting in the effort. They're not putting in the 100% that is needed to play the system. And then when that system falls apart, I think the confidence is then just goes out the window. And it's just this constant toxic cycle.
Yeah, Sparky says Liverpool never a club who would do their bidding in public, not like United. And I understood. I think Alex was the one talking about it, about Fabinho, because we were like, maybe like we were talking about like who should move on and who should stay and stuff like that. And, it came up as like Fabinho. And I think the thing that gets to me is if we're going to look at one player and say, oh, like he had a baby and there's some other stuff going on, probably, well, then you got to do it for everybody. Then you got to look at Gomez like that too. You can't be like, that guy is shits and this guy is just based on history, because obviously that's where the age comes up and smacks you in the face. Trust me, I can tell you that right now. I mean, you can't do the same things that you were able to do, and doesn't matter what you have in your head. It's just like what you have in your body. It just cannot do what you tell your body to do. Anybody who ages over time, even somebody in their mid-20s can tell you that the body on the field does not do what you want it to do in the past, and as you get older that gets less and less and less. Some players get smarter and are be able to like adjust their game to kind of like fit the new body capabilities, while some of them kind of like fade away. And I don't know what the situation with Fabinho is. I think the thing that was getting to me is we don't know, and we're just, when it's a player that everybody has better memories of, we kind of like make excuses for them. But if it is somebody like, I don't know, like Jones or Ox or Gomez or something like that, they're like, they suck, get them out of here, send them to Turkey, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's where, and I'm not saying those guys should stick around, they're great players and stuff, but when you're evaluating players, you got to evaluate them evenly and not just pick and choose your favorites. And I hope the club doesn't either. But yeah, I think the problem is this is a team, this is a system that Klopp has that's, everybody plays like a linebacker in football, right? They're just like, they're just like just going at all times. And if you cannot do that, or if you're kind of, not totally there, suddenly you go from being a linebacker to a quarterback mentality where it's like, let's calm down, guys. It just does not work and translate to our play. And it immediately shows. And I think the moment when the system is designed for you to go 100% at all times for it to function, and sometimes you're at 70%, it just goes and it just like falls apart. And sadly, that's what we've seen. I don't think what the best we've seen, what was our best game or best, that's like Liverpool right there. When was the last time you said that?
Like I said, maybe the first 15 minutes against Madrid, maybe. If not, you might have to go back to Man City. That was just that one game of this whole year. Yeah, where I was like, we look like our old Liverpool team. We're just pressing, very compact. Everybody was on it that day. But you're 100% right. I would even give us 40%. Like you said, we need everybody beat 100%. I don't even know if we're getting 40% right now. And so for us to drop from 100 to 40 is just, that's the most concerning part. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just one or two guys. You could point to like, yeah, Trent is not putting in the effort, or Henderson or whatever, but it's literally all 11. Maybe 9 out of 11 or 10 out of 11, but it's still generally most of the squad. So that's the most concerning part. But the bright side about that is I feel like that is fixable. I feel like, if you start getting a couple wins on the bounce and you're like, okay, when we put in effort, we win. When those two things are correlated, then I think you can start to see a turnaround. But it's hard when we win 2 games and then get smacked, and then tie 1 and then win 2 and then tie 1 and then get smacked. Like, it's just this constant cycle. So until you can just put 4 to 5 wins together, you're just gonna see this. So it's kind of like it's just one of those cycles that you can hope ends, but it's hard to without just getting some wins.
And I think that was probably the most devastating part of that Real Madrid game, because I felt like, you had the 2 wins, you start the game 2-0. You feel like if that game goes and we finished, even if it's 4-1, 4-2, whatever, it would be like they're freaking back. And I think that would help the players saying we're freaking back. Because I don't think, Trent goes out there and says, I really don't feel like running today, but what are you gonna do? Put a shift in and then like swipe the badge and get to work. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of, you need a certain mindset and psychology to be able to do what, to your best and what the system demands. I just don't think they're there mentally, and it shows. So, like I say, in the great words of Schmeichel, I have no idea what's going to happen today, but let's give a score prediction either freaking way, because the people will demand it. And you can't pull a Schmeichel. We can't afford Schmeichel over here to come up and say, I don't know what's going to happen. So what is going to happen?
Well, what did the Echo predict with their simulation?
Hold on. The FIFA simulation, mind you, you know what the funny thing is, if this shit happens today, I'm going to shit my pants. But because they were down to 10 men after 37 minutes, Max Kilman gets a red card. So note this down. 77th minute is when we scored the first goal. A cool finish put Liverpool ahead. I love how they explain this like actual game.
Great commentary.
Arnold to Jota is the first goal, and then the opener personal victory was called. Nunez made it 2-0 and that's how the games ends. 2-0 Nunez and Jota.
That sounds hard-hitting analysis. I don't know if I can disagree with that.
Michael can't pull this shit off.
Yeah. I am still leaning towards a win. I'm not gonna lie, even though we're kind of been talking about how we don't know what to expect, but I just feel like we might have enough quality just to overpower Wolves. Kind of like the FA Cup game we played against them in their place, where we just won 1-0, and it was just kind of like our talent just kind of shone through. So if I had to guess, I'd say 3-1. I don't think we keep a clean sheet, but I think we score enough to win. So that'd be my guess, 3-1.
I'll go with that. I feel like we're playing Wolves for the 15th time. So like both teams know each other, but I think we have more people available now than we did initially. Hopefully that will be the difference maker. I think we have more firepower than we did in the previous 10 games we played them this season. But this is by the way, it's just why you see the Jota finish on the first goal. That's going to come in the 77th minute. I mean, so if you have plans this afternoon, Echo has already got the game figured out, so you could you don't even have to watch the highlights now. This is Jota's goal, and then this is Nunez curving it to that corner there. So enjoy your day, save yourself 2-3 hours of misery. This is how the game is going to end. We're going to play against 10 men once they go to Meanwhile, I'm putting my application to Echo to see if I can simulate their FIFA games for them, just take notes or whatever, send them the video afterwards. But good times. Well, Rami, thank you, sir. Thanks to all those joining us, and stay tuned. Tomorrow evening, Maka will be back with Trevor. They'll definitely be talking a lot about this game and doing the post-match, and hopefully talking about some good things as we kind of look ahead to Sunday. I mean, Sparky was talking about not looking forward to today's game. Holy shit, I am not looking forward to Sunday's game, because after talking all this shit to my brother for the last few years, it's going to be miserable if you lose at home. But let's hope for the best. We keep waiting for this, and I think it's not realistic. I think it's just naive to make this, wait for this, ridiculous pace and speed and stuff like that. See, Alan says good topic this morning. I hope he's not talking about the FIFA one, but because if that's the case, on Friday morning, I'm bringing my PlayStation over here. I will just like play some FIFA and do what we can. By the way, I hate to toot my horn over here, but I'm kicking ass in season, still undefeated after like 67 games or something crazy like that. I'll do a screenshot. I'll send it to Echo. Maybe they'll hire me or something like that. See what happens. Have a great day, everybody. Let's hope we can all enjoy the game. And then we'll be back tomorrow evening. Site is back, by the way, in all its glory. So you can kind of like browse there. We just actually updated our LFC news page. So the feed is a lot more current and it's a lot more mixed to different RSS feeds. You might even get like this article over here from Echo. Actually, no, we don't follow Echo exactly for this reason, because we don't want FIFA highlights in our news feed over here. But have a great day. Let's go get these 3 points. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.